Error after error after error. That pretty much sums up André Onana's time with Manchester United, because the guy once hailed as one of the best goalkeepers in the world was very quickly labelled the worst keeper in the club's history, with a conviction that needs no proof. He's even been compared to Santa Claus, but if Santa gave away goals instead of presents. And the expectation of seeing his name in the headlines for big-time saves for the Red Devils quickly turned into a sea of memes, nicknames and abuse from the fans. The narrative is brutal, and on the surface, it's pretty convincing. He's the sort of keeper whose howlers seem to go beyond simple bad luck and become a kind of involuntary incompetence. From passes hoofed, straight to the opposition, to shots that inexplicably squirm through his gloves, his time at United has been, for many, a complete car crash. But is that the whole story? Is Onana, in reality, a keeper who is fundamentally bad at his job? By looking at his career from the beginning to his peak and his eventual decline, it becomes blindingly obvious that his situation isn't just a simple case of ineptitude. This is the story of a keeper with a very specific, high-risk style of play that flourished in a structured environment and, once exposed to chaos, became his greatest vulnerability. This analysis goes deep into the data, the context, and the psychology to answer the question of whether Onana is a total disaster, or if he's the tragic figure of a broken system. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Before arriving in Manchester, he was a midfielder in goal, the trusted man in a Champions League final, and one of the most sought-after keepers in Europe. Understanding his fall is understanding the complex collapse of André Onana. The story of Onana as an elite keeper begins at one of the world's most famous talent factories. At the age of 14 in 2010, he joined Barcelona's renowned La Masia academy. This formative period was crucial in shaping his style. Unlike traditional academies that prioritize shot stopping above all else, La Masia instilled a playing philosophy that valued the keeper as an extra outfield player, with the ability to initiate attacks and be a fundamental part of the build-up. After 4 years at Barcelona, with limited opportunities to break into the first team and his contract running down, Onana moved to Ajax for a modest transfer fee of around €150,000, with potential bonuses up to €500,000. This move opened the door for him to begin his journey into the elite. Although he initially joined the reserve side, young Ajax, to adapt to a new country and style of play, his chance came in 2016 when Jasper Cillessen left for Barcelona. Under managers Peter Bosz and later Erik ten Hag, Onana cemented his spot between the sticks, proving to be a pillar of the young and exciting Ajax team. By the age of 21, he was already in goal during the 2017 campaign that saw Ajax reach the Europa League final. 2 years later, he was a central figure in the club's memorable 2019 Champions League run, which included knocking out giants like Real Madrid and Juventus before falling to Tottenham in the semi-finals. At a domestic level, his success was just as impressive, winning the Eredivisie 3 times. At this point in his career, his style, characterized by exceptional ability with his feet and a bravery to play out from the back, cemented his place as one of the best keepers in the world, with his game compared to that of an extra outfield player. However, despite being praised for his extraordinary distribution skills, he did commit errors that led to goals. In a domestically dominant team like Ajax, these blunders didn't have major consequences, but they were already red flags about certain issues in the main function of his position. One of the biggest points of debate was the width of his stance and the low position he adopted to save shots at an angle. The keeper coaches tried to correct this technical flaw, but André insisted that his technique allowed him to get to low balls faster. After conducting studies on his reaction time and reach, the club realized André was right, and the results reflected an inevitable destiny: recognition as one of the world's best goalkeepers. Nevertheless, despite his success, Onana's career faced an almost insurmountable obstacle in February 2021, when UEFA banned him for 12 months after he failed a doping test. The prohibited substance, furosemide, was found in his system. Onana explained that he had confused the pill with an aspirin for a headache, accidentally taking his wife's prescription medication. In a significant turn, UEFA admitted that there was no intent to cheat from the player, but the ban was upheld, although it was reduced to 9 months on appeal. This incident wasn't just a pause in his career, it was a devastating blow to his competitive rhythm and, more importantly, to his confidence. An elite keeper who had played almost every game suddenly found himself sitting at home, watching his teammates celebrate titles without him. A high-risk keeper's mentality is built on an almost arrogant self-belief. Every decision, every pass, every charge out of the box must be made with absolute conviction. This suspension, which took him away from professional football and plunged him into a period of professional solitude, was a direct attack on that psychological foundation. While he recovered professionally, it's plausible that this crack in his confidence never fully healed. His subsequent errors at United, often related to taking risks, could be a delayed manifestation of that underlying insecurity, exacerbated by an unstable environment. Despite an unhappy exit from Ajax, his history of success and resilience after the ban ensured that a host of top teams were still interested in his services. In the summer of 2022, Onana joined Inter Milan on a free transfer, a move that would mark the climax of his career to that point. Although he initially shared minutes with the club captain, Samir Handanovic, it didn't take long for him to prove his worth, becoming the undisputed number one. The 2022-2023 season was a resounding success, with Inter winning the Coppa Italia and the Supercoppa Italiana. Onana was the starting keeper in both finals, solidifying his status as a trusted figure in the biggest matches. However, it was in the Champions League that his reputation reached its peak. During the campaign, Onana kept 7 clean sheets in 13 matches, the most of any keeper in the competition. Inter advanced to the final in Istanbul, where, despite losing 1-0 to Manchester City, Onana earned a lot of respect. Pep Guardiola himself praised his ability with the ball at his feet, noting that he played like a midfielder. At 27, Onana appeared to be at the peak of his career, the culmination of a style forged at Barcelona and perfected at Ajax. And then came the biggest challenge and the start of the downfall. Onana's £43.8 million move to Manchester United in July 2023 wasn't an impulsive decision. At the time, the club was desperate for a keeper who was exceptional with the ball at his feet, believing that club legend David de Gea was holding their system back. Despite keeping a clean sheet in almost half of his games and winning the Premier League's Golden Glove, the club offered the Spaniard a reduced contract, which he rejected. From that moment on, the hope was that Onana's elite ability to play out from the back would take United to a new level, perfectly in sync with Erik ten Hag's vision. The data from the 2022-2023 season fully backed this decision. A comparison of the two keepers' metrics in their respective competitions, Onana in the Champions League, De Gea in the Premier League, clearly showed why Onana was the ideal candidate. The data analysis revealed that Onana surpassed De Gea in almost every passing metric, especially in his ability to find teammates in nearly every direction on the pitch. While De Gea was known for kicking the ball much further, Onana's style focused on short, precise passes to the defensive midfielders, allowing for fluid build-up play. Although both keepers were among the best at stopping close-range shots and keeping clean sheets, Onana also stood out for being better at stopping long-range shots and for avoiding major mistakes in the season before his arrival at United. In theory, Onana's reunion with his former manager seemed like a guaranteed recipe for success. Unfortunately, the reality proved to be very different. Onana's debut season at United became an endless run of costly errors. While his first game, a 1-0 win against Wolves, ended in a clean sheet, a risky decision at the end of the match was an early warning sign of what was to come. From there, the blunders piled up mercilessly. In the Champions League, in a campaign United would rather forget, his errors were particularly devastating. A seemingly soft shot from Sané slipped through his hands in the 4-3 loss to Bayern Munich, and UEFA stats revealed that Onana had made the most errors leading to a goal since the 2018-2019 season. His failures in the 2 matches against Galatasaray were a low point, with a pass straight to the opposition leading to a red card and a missed penalty, and 2 free kicks that inexplicably slipped through his hands and under his arm. The problem wasn't limited to Europe. In the Premier League, Onana's errors multiplied. A fumbled ball from a harmless cross cost him a goal against Brighton, and a lack of communication in the box led to an early goal against Ipswich. A particularly glaring mistake occurred against Sheffield United, the weakest team in the league, when he attempted a simple pass to Diogo Dalot that was easily intercepted, allowing the opposition to score. An analysis of his save style at United also revealed a critical flaw. it was observed that Onana had a bad habit of pushing shots back into dangerous areas far more often than he had in previous seasons. His saving technique relies on perfect athleticism and timing, which often involves parrying the ball rather than catching it. At Inter, with a well-organised back three, a parried ball from Onana was quickly cleared. The save was considered a success. However, at United, with their unstable and injury-plagued defence, the same save turned into a second-chance opportunity for the opposition. His style, once his greatest strength, had become a liability for a team that lacked the structure to support it. But in addition to that flaw, it was also discovered that many of the goals he conceded had similar patterns. Poor judgment in aerial challenges, weak positioning to close off the near post, incorrect reading of long-range shots, poor positioning, and a lack of punch in his reactions. The paradox of Onana lies in the fact that his errors at United were often the result of a playing style that, in a more stable environment, had earned him an elite status. The narrative that labels Onana as the worst keeper often ignores the systemic context in which he operates. It's a fact that Manchester United has been a defensively unstable and injury-plagued team. A keeper, especially one whose style is based on being a sweeper keeper who ventures out of his box, is only as good as the system around him. The risks a keeper like Onana takes are only viable if the defence is coordinated and has the ability to cover any potential mistakes. In an environment of great instability, a keeper's errors are magnified and become symbols of a bigger problem. The relentless pressure and public mockery, with brutal chants and harsh punditry, likely played a significant role in the erosion of his confidence. Onana's unforced errors, while his own, were part of the reason for the entire squad's lack of confidence. However, as manager Ruben Amorim summed it up, the team felt like the worst team maybe in the history of Manchester United. And that means that despite Onana's costly mistakes, they were just the cherry on top of a season of collective failure, not the sole cause. Onana's story at United isn't a linear decline. A deeper analysis of the sources reveals that his performance hasn't been consistently poor. Reports have documented periods of renaissance and improved form. In matches like the one against Grimsby, where there was no margin for error, the keeper failed to cover his near post and then made an error on a high ball. Both mistakes led to a penalty shootout, in which United were knocked out. The criticism labelled him as the one responsible for the elimination, well and truly burying his time with the Red Devils. The reality is that Onana's talent hasn't disappeared. His problem lies in his inconsistency and fragile confidence. When his mental game falters, his high-risk style becomes a disaster. When he regains some belief, his innate quality resurfaces. He is an elite keeper with one critical vulnerability that has been mercilessly exposed by a dysfunctional team, where his style isn't what the team actually needs. The pressure and instability amplified his moments of weakness, making every error more noticeable than his periods of good form. The case of André Onana is a study in how a player, even one with a history of elite success and talent, can become a tragic figure when placed in the wrong environment. The answer to the question of whether Onana is a bad keeper is far more complex than a simple yes or no. The data and his career at Inter prove he isn't the worst keeper to have ever played in the Premier League. His style was his greatest strength. However, his inherent weaknesses, a tendency to parry shots and an occasionally erratic judgment, were mercilessly exposed by a Manchester United side that needed a keeper with a different profile and lacked the defensive structure to manage the risks his style entails. Onana is not just a villain in his own story, but also a victim of circumstances and a gamble on a style that didn't fit with Manchester United. His career at the club is a reminder that a player's success isn't just about their individual ability, but about the synergy between their style of play and their team's system. Onana became a symbol of his club's dysfunction, and the joke he became was once proof that he could be one of the best in the world. The question now is whether he can regain the confidence and consistency for his talent to shine in Turkey. Only time will tell. Now the question is, will Onana be able to regain his confidence? Do you think he's the worst keeper in the history of the Premier League or just in recent years? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell for more content on world football.